All right. Good evening. Today is Monday, September 2nd, 2019. Happy Labor Day. Welcome to the Sweet Talk. I am your host, Kim Matina. I am a gold product expert for the Google for Education team, and I am a technology teacher and a Google certified trainer. And today I have on the show Miss Michelle Stein. She is a veteran teacher in Atlanta, Georgia. She's been teaching for 17 years. And this year she's teaching sixth grade, and she's a Google certified educator. So good. It's good to have you on. Thank you for being on.
It is my pleasure.
As I said, she's from Georgia, and we were just talking about, her impact on from the hurricane, and she's really safe. So in case anybody wants to know where, if she's near the coastline where Hurricane Dorian is coming up, she's nowhere near there. So she's in a good, safe location near in Atlanta. So I'm glad for that. So Michelle, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Like I said, you're 17 years educator. You got a lot of experience. So what are some of the other things that you are an expert in? I know you provided me with a lot of information in the Google Doc, but it's best that you mention all that stuff.
Sure, I have quite a bit of involvement in technology, which is one of the reasons that I've always been so interested in your podcast. I've never been afraid of it, and I've used it in many different ways in the classroom, both when I
Thank
was
you.
teaching graphic design and teaching photography, teaching visual arts, especially with art history, and now with language arts. I would call myself a full integration expert, which is something I try to do as a mentor for a lot of teachers who are new in the classroom or who may not be as familiar. So I use Symbaloo religiously, I like to say to my students and fellow teachers, as a bookmarking tool, not only for myself, but to let parents and students see lots of other student work. It's a great way to use that particular product. You mentioned that I'm Google certified, both level 1 and level 2. I use Google Classroom with my students, integrated into some other programs that we use privately. I'm in a private school. We have a lot of luxury of leeway of how we offer our curriculum, and I'm grateful for that. I also am very involved in the Adobe world and teaching some of our older students. I teach in a middle school. I actually do teach Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop and graphic design. And I teach them a lot about workflow as well as copyright protection. And
Very important.
yes, absolutely, in both directions. Uh,
Yeah.
don't take if you don't want anybody to take your work. It goes in both directions. And finally, I am also a consultant for a company that tries to help teachers present curriculum in a lot of different ways so that it reaches all kinds of learners. There's the old Gardner theory of different kinds of learning doesn't necessarily go away, it just morphs over a period of years. And I still believe that some students need to have lots of different modalities in order to conquer content. So that's something that I help develop as a curriculum specialist with an outside firm.
Well, that to me, right there, that's priceless. Being able to help other educators target their students' learning
Mm-hmm.
goals, with differentiated instruction and using the different tools that meet their learning goals and how to make them successful. That to me, that goes along with all of your expertise and your years of teaching, because those things you don't learn year one, year two, year
Right.
three. It takes time,
Yep.
So that's great, and I'm glad that you're sharing. So, and I'm glad that you're on today sharing what you know. To get off topic real quick, I would be interested in having you on again if you would want to go over Adobe.
Oh, sure.
I mean, because I think some like well, we can talk about that later, but it would be something that would be helpful, I think, for people to know about and and to display what you were just saying about copyright laws and using Photoshop and different things. I think that's important, especially now with people doing that more often.
Yes, yes.
So we'll
Yeah.
talk about that later. But I know
Sure.
you are anxious about going over how you use Tour Builder. Tour Builder.
Yes.
All right. It's not a new product. It's
Right.
been around for a few years, or maybe more than a few years,
Right.
but it's still in beta, and it is a very effective geo tool. So I'm glad that you're showing it off. You were the first person to show off Tour Builder. So why don't
That's
you show
right.
us what you have and how you use it in the classroom?
Sure. It surprises me that not more people are using this product. And I'm also surprised that it's not become part of the classroom series of apps, because there are so many different ways that it can be utilized. And as I mentioned a little bit ago, part of what I love doing is demonstrating how integration works effectively and how it teaches students to understand the relationships between different subject areas in the classroom. And that's one of the reasons that I love using Tour Builder, because it's not only about geography. That's merely a jumping off point. Having the map gives you freedom to do all kinds of projects. And I have a lengthy list of suggestions that I'll mention in a little bit. But first, I wanted to share with you the way that I use it to kick off my school year. It's the first project we do, and it gives the students a lot of flexibility. So I'm going to, if it's okay, go ahead and share my screen so I can talk to how I use this in my classroom.
So that's interesting that you say it's your first project that you do with the students. What is that? What is that project?
Over the summer, we require our students to read 2 books. One of them is a choice book based on empathy, and the other is Trapped by Mark Aronson, which documents, this one is nonfiction, and it documents the rescue of the Chilean miners back about 10 years ago, and how international cooperation was required to save these men. And the students get a taste of how many branches of science there are that they'll be touching on in the next couple of years, and what it means to work cooperatively, because that's going to become more and more critical as these students grow up and move out into the working world.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. That's a skill that they definitely need.
Mm-hmm.
So Tour Builder, go ahead and show off what you have here. This looks um, to me, I don't know if you agree, but when I tell people about Tour Builder, I tell them that it's a combination of Google Maps and
Mm-hmm.
Google Presentations.
Yes, and that's how I introduce it to my students. I tell them that it's slides mixed with Google Maps mixed with Word. It's Google Docs is in there in the middle. So you have 3 columns, I like to explain to them, of ways that you can present information to me. And what they have to explain to me, they have a rubric. My students get a rubric. And this is after we've talked in class. It's only one class period that we do this. We talk about the book, not a lot, because it's fact. It just is, and it's relatively easy for them to understand. I teach 6th grade, and they have to, over the summer, answer comprehension questions so I can make sure that they understood what they read. But what they have to present is on the left-hand side of the screen. I'll use my mouse here to show that these are slides, basically, and you can navigate between them using the next button, which is down here at the bottom. The middle is where the students can provide text, and as you see, even images related to whichever slide you are currently on. And on the right-hand side is the integration of Google Maps, where they can drop their own pins. For people who are familiar with how Google Maps works, the students drop the pins in a location that would have been providing help to the government of Chile and in many different ways. They're required to demonstrate at least 4 different countries. So for my students, this requires an understanding of knowing the difference between a continent and a country and a state. I did have several students who made the mistake of identifying states in the US, but not realizing that they were at the wrong level. It needed to be country level. So I learned a lot about how carefully they're reading the instructions and how they're presenting the information. So here you're seeing the first slide. It's the introduction. And then when I go to the next slide, I can either click on the slide or I can click next. And it takes me to the pin drop that the student has provided. They are required to give me what it was the student did, what it was the country did that the student found valuable. And as you move in the slide program,
and then they had to give an image of the country.
The image is optional, actually. I had several students who didn't give country-related images. They showed images of the rescue.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's up to the student. They are permitted to be as creative as they're able. And many students enjoy the opportunity to customize this map, which is actually, in my opinion, a lot of fun. So you'll see that this student went from the US and then down to Australia and then back to the US. And, you know, I do look at why, I want to know why she made that decision and, you know, why jumping around the globe. Was there some reason that what NASA did was more important than what happened in Sydney? Is that why it's closer to the rescue? I'm looking for how they're thinking. And all of these decisions that a student is making are actually pretty important in their process thinking, because a lot of students at this age struggle with executive functioning skills and planning and organizing. And this particular product, Google Tour Builder, helps them organize their thinking. A student can move slides up and down the same way that you can in a Google slide presentation. They can move pins, they can change colors, they can add the images, as you said. So customization tells me an awful lot about a student's ability to be a risk taker and their personality. I had a number of students who found that they could use airplanes as pins when something was flown to the site. So that tells me a lot about their ability to be resourceful.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
So, you know, as we click through here, you see that this particular student chose to give us flags of every country, which required going to look for those images. And I'm at this point in the year, I'm not prohibiting use of Wikipedia, so that's where these flags came from. And here you can see an image that was shared of the entrance to the mine. This is where the actual mine is located. And finally, a closing statement of where they were.
So let me ask you, Michelle, when I mean, I know the answer and I know you know it as well. So when they create a new tour, they automatically come up with an introduction slide, and then they would put like the title of their tour in there, or a pitch or a picture. The next pin or the next slide, what do they have to actually type in to create the I guess the place mark, or to create that slide? I'm assuming that they have to type in the title and the location. Right?
Yep. Let me go to my actual account rather than this student account and show you the process. So I am first asked to create a tour. And
by the way, this is at tourbuilder.withgoogle.com.
Yes, it's not, for whatever reason, it's the with Google, and I think that that's because it's still listed as a beta program. So a a lot of folks might make the mistaken assumption that you just type in tour builder. You will not get the app if you do that. You've got to type in the entire address, tour builder with Google. So here is my first view, and this is my introductory slide. So I can add a photo, and here is where I would type what it is I want to add. In order to drop the pin, I have to give Google a little bit more information. So there are a lot of different ways I can do this. I can make lots of choices. I can choose whether I want it to be 2D. Currently it's 3D, or change the view if you've got the software. You may have noticed that the color of the path had changed with that last student. And if I want to select a place, if I want to go ahead and tell it where to go, I've got to click add so that it knows where I'm going. So when I click add, I need to tell it where I want to drop a pin. If I could spell it correctly. There we go. And there's my first pin drop. I can, if I wish, get more specific. And students love to do this. They love to drop a pin on their house, which I respectfully tell them not to do for safety and security reasons. But it's always fun for them to go searching and find what they're familiar with. Once I've dropped that pin, you'll see here it says place mark. I can add it to the tour and then give lots more information. So there's a lot I can do with this to customize what I'm going to do for my project.
And this here, I mean, this actually you have a lot of options here.
Right.
You can add up to 25 pictures and or a video in this place mark. You can also use it as a timeline, so you have a start date, end date. You can, like you were saying, you have your students type in a description in the introduction box, and you can put links in there. You can format the information there, and you can change the icon like you were saying before. So this really, it really gives you a lot of different ways to represent the information. And like you were saying, Michelle, like, you can tell by students critical thinking skills and creativity if they're diving deep and giving you more than just the bare minimum.
That's right. And for teachers who teach classes other than social studies, I'm a language arts teacher, there's so many options for how to integrate this into the classroom. The start and end date, it doesn't have to be real start and end dates. This could be, for those who are familiar with it, a lit trip. When you're reading a fictional novel, you can create a tour of where the family goes. For instance, my students are currently reading Watson's Go to Birmingham, which begins in Flint, Michigan, and moves to Birmingham, Alabama, then back to Flint. And understanding the timeline is actually important to this novel because there are some historical events that occur. So being able to put where the family is at any given time helps them better understand the novel. So there are lit trips that already exist, but I actually think that having students create them themselves does more for understanding.
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree there because it gives them more control. It gives them more of a concrete, I don't know, perspective of what they're actually reading, and they're creating it so it connects with what they're learning,
Yeah, the students, when they're reading a novel, sometimes time is so fluid. It could be a week that has passed, it could be 4 months that has passed, and when you're reading, that doesn't really connect in your brain.
Right.
So, being able to use a product of this nature helps with that.
Now, so when they create the tour and they're all done with the tour, then what do they do?
When they're finished, they've made all their changes, um, they would need to share it, and the share button allows you any of the ways that Google shares information in general. It is important to allow this to be public if someone is going to see it outside of the school domain. So for us, we actually create symbols and allow anyone to go look at these. It's loads of fun to get information, but some schools may want to keep it private, in which case they can email the teacher or they can put the link on Google Classroom. I've actually done that in the past as well, where all they have to do is copy the link and put it in Google Classroom so that I can see it. And that way keep it private if it's an issue for the school.
And you have to be signed into your Google account, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because it only gives you two ways to share. It's either private or anyone with the link. So that's good. And plus, there's no app. This is all web-based, so you don't need to access. You don't need to talk to your IT department. They don't need to enable anything in the Google Admin Console. This is all accessible via the web. So you can go to tourbuilder.withgoogle.com and just start building.
That's right.
You don't, and that's nice because you don't have to ask anybody, hey, can you enable this app for me? No, there's no app. It's a web-based, um, you know, tool.
That is correct.
So now let me ask you this. So you displayed how you use it with ELA and using lit trips and things like that, and you expressed how you're using it with timelines with your novel and all. Obviously, using it in a history class is a big one. What other ways for other classes do you recommend aligning this tool up with?
One of my favorites is actually math when teachers are teaching use of angles. So you can have students create a series of tours and then have them measure the angles from one pin to another, which would be a really interesting application to see if students truly understand what an angle is. And
Yeah. So like what, so give me an example of that because I find that interesting. So if you say, okay, I want you to give me like a 90-degree angle and use major cities, is that, would that be like an example or?
yeah, that's definitely one way you can do it. Another way a teacher could do it is say using um, major sports stadiums, create a tour that has a 45-degree angle, a 65-degree angle, a 75-degree angle, and a 180-degree angle somewhere in your tour.
Okay, I got that. I like that. I really like that. I think it's creative and
Right.
it gives them obviously a good use of geometry, but they're using geography in there as well. So I think it kind of, you know, it's fun. It makes it
Yeah.
more fun, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, and that's what I love to do is find ways to make connections between different subject matter. Um, Another one is this would have to be done with students who have had a little bit more experience with visual arts, who have had some art history, but or any kind of movements. It could be also in a music class to identify how a movement progresses across a large space. So when I say large space, I mean a continent. So how does a movement get from, for example, the Harlem Renaissance, how does that happen from the north and then ultimately impact the music of New Orleans? There's a lot that could be done there, but of course with that needs to be with older students who understand the implications of migration.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great idea as well. I mean, there's so many ways, and it's really thinking out of the box, right? Like,
That's right.
this is definitely you know, like I said before, you can use Tour Builder and think of it as like a Google slideshow on steroids because it gives you the ability to have maps in there, and in like Michelle was saying, you can measure distance, you can insert different place marks in there, and you can put your pegman in there, and you can drop place marks, you know, in different areas. If you want, you can
Yep.
change
And
your view in there. So there's so many different ways to use this.
yeah, and there's even, especially for science, one we did in one of our social studies classes a couple of years ago. They were trying to explain the growth of, or the spread rather of diseases, and you could use Google Tour Builder a lot of different ways with that kind of scenario. They also had map building for zombies, which was loads of fun, which is how would zombies attack a particular city, and they had to create a map, and how would safety areas be identified. I think it would be a great project to have to identify where major mathematicians and scientists um, are from historically, to see clusters of learning and understanding. I think that would be a really interesting project, instead of just saying, here's a list of scientists, go do a biography. It makes much
Yeah.
more sense to me to give a broader picture.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, it's funny because um, I'm actually going to like, so I'm the technology teacher at my school,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to think of technology projects to integrate in with, you know, the core subject. So one of the eighth grade social studies teachers I was speaking to, we were brainstorming over the summer on how we can use maps,
Yep.
and Tour Builder came up.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking with him, with eighth grade, is what we're thinking to do is have like create a template in presentations, in Google presentations, and the students just have to really find the information, like, you know, whatever he really wants.
Right.
It's going to be the location. He's got to give me a description. The students have to give me a picture. They have to give me a link or video, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they have that information in the slide, and they're going to take that, like that would be like a homework, and then in class they would transfer that into Tour Builder, and
Oh,
it would be an accumulative tour, so that the students can actually see when they're studying the different units from the textbook, like what parts of the world that they're actually studying about. And then
oh,
at the end
exactly.
of the
That's
school year,
fabulous.
yeah, I thought that was cool. So like at the end of the school year, we were thinking, oh, we'll have like maybe 25 place marks. And then the kids can see, you know, we started off here in Africa, and then they moved to, you know, the different areas. And he really liked that. So this is gonna be a new project for them. So I have to create all the resources and the playlists, and come up with, you know, hyperdoc to make the assignment. But he really was on board with it. So I think using this type of tool not only gives the student the ability to see it in a slide, but it
Mhm.
also, the best part is showing it through the map. And
Right.
that's what he couldn't believe, how um, like that, just to have that whole thing together was just priceless to him.
Yep. Yep. It's a well thought out tool.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this: what would make you use My Maps? So in Drive, so we'll switch for a minute or two,
Mm-hmm.
talk about Google My Maps, because in Google My Maps, I can do the same thing. I can actually plot points, I can add descriptions, I can add images and links. But what is one of the major differences in using a tool like Tour Builder versus Google My Maps? What do you think? What would
Cool.
make,
That's something I haven't really thought about. I've always used Tour Builder just because it's all there in one screen. I think,
okay.
I don't have to go searching in different places in the program to pull in what I need. It's all right there on that main screen, and everything is a drop down.
Okay. So,
So,
so like, because that's what I was debating on, whether, okay, what's going to make me try Tour Builder versus My Maps, you know? So,
right.
like, in my head, I'm going to use tour builder with one grade, and I'm going to use my maps with the other grade, with
Yeah.
seventh grade, and I'm going to actually see, I
Yeah.
want to experiment, and I want to see the reactions to the students and what they liked or what they found was easier or whatnot, because I'm having a hard time to differentiating between the both tools for this project, because seventh grade is going to do the same thing. They're just studying in a different part of the world. Um, so yeah, I was just curious to see like what your thoughts were on that. I mean, I like Tour Builder because it gives you everything that you need with the presentation and the map. Um, but my maps, lives in Drive.
Right.
Where Tour Builder, you have to go to another website.
Right.
You can still share both via Google Classroom. So and I know with my maps, you may want to get the directions, or you want to get, measure different, you know, tools within my maps, transportation directions or walking directions, but you can still measure distance,
Sure.
drop place marks. But I just wanted to see what your opinion was on that.
Yeah, I have, that's a really good question that I haven't thought about because I'm comfortable with Tour Builder, so I haven't tried to transition or to compare the two really.
All
Have
right, well, I'm gonna let you know how
yeah.
it works out, because I was debating on whether to do it, to use Tour Builder for both grades or not, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to do my maps for seventh grade, Tour Builder for eighth grade, and then I'm going to get like an opinion from the students and hear feedback, and then see what they liked. So I'll let you know.
Oh, that's great.
I'll let you know. Because that's my thing. Like I have like all these geo tools. They're so good. They give so much information.
Hmm.
You can view it in all different ways. But when is the best time to use it? Which application will really meet my needs and align perfect for my project?
Yeah,
That
and I think you're right that sometimes you just have to try it and be willing to see, have those little glitches that happen to figure out what works best.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll let you know. Oh, like I don't know. Like I was even thinking too, like even with my maps, I know like you can import data into my maps. So if I had a Google Sheet,
Hmm.
I can actually log the locations in the sheet and then import that as a layer. And then in maps, I can name my layers. Just
Right.
say, each continent.
Right.
But in Tour Builder, you can do the same thing. It would just be a different slide. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Exactly.
it's just a different way of
Yeah. It's
presenting.
just presenting the information. That's right.
Yeah. So there you go. But I'll let you know. Like I'll follow up with you and let you know sometime during the school year. And just to give you feedback, because of the show and what you presented today. I really appreciate you being on and going
Absolutely.
over it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much more that we have to talk about. We'll have to have another session.
Oh my gosh, definitely. We'll have to follow up. We'll definitely follow up sometime in the middle of the school year. Give me some time to get going with my projects on my end, and then we can follow up with it, because and then you can showcase what you've done at that point, and then I can show you what I've done, and we can just talk about, you know, the students' feedback and what we thought we can do better or whatnot. So yeah, definitely. Let's do that. I'll schedule it and send you an invite, and we can definitely meet up maybe like after the holidays.
Sounds great.
That sounds good. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on. I really enjoyed meeting you. And going over Tour Builder was valuable information, and your expertise and how you use it in the class. You gave so many great examples using it in the math class and science and history and language arts. I mean, you touched on every single subject, and especially you said in arts as well. So you did showcase examples of that. So I think what Michelle's saying is just try it. Just try it. Try something new, and you may like it. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You just nothing. The computer is not going to blow up, right?
Exactly. And the student may be able to use it for some other project in the future.
Exactly. And you know what? Like, if you give the kids the tool,
Right.
They're going to learn it so fast
Right.
that they're going to end up teaching you, you know,
Right.
different things that you didn't know about it. So it's a win-win, right?
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I love this particular product is that I don't have to do any teaching. It's so intuitive. I give them about a 10-minute introduction and then I say, all right, have fun. And they do.
And then what do you hear at the end? Like after the project's over, and they shared the project with you in Google Classroom, what do you hear from them at the end? Did they
Um,
like it? Did they say it was easy?
yes, yes, always. They always tell me that they enjoyed doing it, that it was fun. They loved not being able to create that kind of product rather than having to write an essay, for example, or just answer questions about the book. They love the approach, and they enjoyed being able to customize it because I'm all for show me who you are. I don't want you to check off all these boxes. I want you to show me what you can do. So I love the opportunity to see who is creative, who's a risk taker, and that always comes across.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. You're right. I definitely agree. Well, thanks for being on, Michelle. That concludes our show for tonight. We're definitely gonna follow up after the holidays and compare notes and see what
Yep.
we have. I think that'll be fun.
Yep.
But let me share my screen real quick. And so if you want to see, if you want to visit my website, you can visit me at thesuitetalk.com. That's the SUITE talk.com. And you'll come to my homepage. And on my homepage, you can always see the latest episodes of what was on and podcasts. You can click on the guest form, and you can fill out the form to be a guest on my show. And I will get back to you as soon as I can. You can see who's going to be on my show by checking the schedule. You can also join the Facebook community. So if you join the Facebook community, that's just another way that we can learn from each other and pay it forward. If you want to see any past episodes or podcasts, you can go to the episodes and podcast list page, and it'll display all of the last um, episodes that I had in the past and podcasts here as well on Podbean. If you like my show, please subscribe to it on YouTube. I have a newsletter as well. I'm on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, and Google Podcast as well. So I hope that you found this show helpful tonight. I know I really enjoyed meeting Michelle. And that's it. Quick and easy. So until next time, have a great school year. I know I'll be starting tomorrow. I know many of you already started, so I wish everyone a fantastic school year. Be awesome, and hope to see you soon. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.